Anybody who came from Berkeley? That's all right. Don't be shy. People who came from San Francisco, from the city? Right on. Thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you for the organizers for putting this on. I want to say one thing first and foremost is that we've been speaking to youth in the East Bay about what has happened all throughout this week. And I just wanted to report back to y'all some of the things that have been coming up. And some of it is powerful, some of it is disturbing, but some of it is also hope and a platform and a way we can move forward. Because I really sincerely believe when incidents like this happen, if the youth voice isn't included, we're not really making decisions at all. We're glossing things over. We're trying to, as quickly as possible, make things go back to normal. But we know that back to normal wasn't really normal to begin with. And we can't have that happen. We can't let this happen. So a lot of the conversations that we have with young people focused on survival issues. That's the way we ended up defining it. And a lot of it, and you've heard it yourself, I'm sure you have, you've been speaking to young people about this. A lot of it focused on, well, why was she there? And why was she doing this? And why was she doing that? And she's only this young and all of those things. And I said, okay. The organizer said, okay. Because when you're in a conversation with you, that's what you do. You let them speak their piece. You say, okay. And then after that, we wanted to push it further. And we said, why are we always stuck having discussions and discussing tactics about survival? Why are we stuck at that level where we look outside and we say, okay, it's a jungle out there. Okay, it's a concrete jungle. If I'm speaking to my daughter or my baby sister, my cousin, we're like, don't go there. Don't talk to those dudes. Don't dress that way. Don't act this way. And I'm censoring her and trying to ensure that she'll survive. Fine, maybe that has a place. Maybe that has a place. But when are we going to get to the point where we look at those conditions and say, this is indefensible? I don't want to raise my daughter in these conditions. I don't want to have my little sister and my cousin and my mother and my grandmother have to endure this and have the responsibility to survive be on them. It's not right. And when are we as men going to say, and I'm sick of the conditioning that's been put on us, where we've been reduced to the lowest common denominator, where we've been reduced to animal instinct, where we've been trained to think if a woman walks by wearing a certain type of clothing, we're just supposed to be like, oh, wow, okay. And we don't have a decision-making process in this. And I'm not doing this to remove any culpability from the men. In fact, I want to put more of the responsibility on us. I want to say, where were we? Where were we when that happened? Thank you, brother. Where were we when that happened? I'm especially talking to fathers, and not just the father of that young girl, because I don't want to speak on that situation because I don't know them, but the fathers of those young boys that were there. Where were we? Where were we? Another thing that came up in our discussion with young people, and I know this is a controversial topic, especially for younger people and younger people of color here, the idea of snitching came up multiple times. And people are like, well, you know, even though that happened, I don't know if I could talk to the authorities about that. I don't know if I could talk to so-and-so about that. I don't know if I could do that. There's a code. And I just want to point out one thing, is that we can have a separate discussion about whether the economic activity that happens on the streets of Richmond or Oakland or San Francisco is right. That's a separate discussion. I just want to point out that those codes about snitching were developed to protect that economic activity. I just want to say there was no hustle going on in that schoolyard. There was no money being defended. There was no money being made. And even if there was, that still wouldn't make it right. But this is not about snitching. Also, I want to point out, young brother at Met West brought this up. He stood up, he raised his hand, and he said, well, if the whole community stands up and says something, is it snitching? If the whole community stood up and said something, what could they say? What could they do? That whole conversation of snitching is out of the picture now, because it's about the authority of the people. It's about a different conversation that we're having. And we have to acknowledge that there's multiple conversations happening. That's heavy on my heart. First of all, our prayers and our thoughts and our sympathy goes out to that young woman. She's not just a victim. We have to stop saying she's just a victim. She's also a survivor. And thankfully, there's sisters here and brothers who have gone through that experience. Hopefully, there's a network that she can plug into to help her cope. There's also a conversation that's complicated by race and class. I'm not here to apologize for anything. I'm not doing that. All I'm saying is that they're going to try to divide this beloved community even more in the next few weeks and months. We just have to be prepared for that. They're going to use that little snapshot and try their best to push several agendas. One, they're going to try and blame the victim. You know that's going to happen. And second of all, you know they're going to try and use this to keep pushing the criminalization of black and brown men. You know that's going to happen. And as a community, as a community that has the authority to step up and collectively say, no, this is not going to happen again, we can push back on both of those fronts. And we can start a new conversation that's outside of the bounds of the official conversation. Because especially for the grown people here, for parents here, for people who have positions of authority in their community, we have to do two things. And I thank the mayor for being frank about the institutional nature of this kind of stuff. We have to have a conversation that goes upward towards truth to power, and one that goes downward deep into the roots of our basic understandings of each other. And Youth Speaks, we're committed to opening that space so those kids can dictate that conversation and take it as far as they want to go. And we believe in a literacy that's not just with words, but with actions. That's all we're trying to do. It's not really about us. It's about what the youth are going to do next and how we can best help them. On the level of speaking truth to power, are we going to keep accepting rape in all of its forms? The way it happened to this girl, are we going to accept it when administrations rape whole other nations? They do this on a huge basis. They're raping Iraq, they're raping Afghanistan, and the two issues are intimately tied, because if you've seen the pictures of those soldiers raping that young Iraqi girl, you know that it's not an abstract connection at all. What they're doing out there is what's happening here. And the ironic thing is, especially the young males of color here, we've been drafted into a war against ourselves. And we're using those tactics of war, unfortunately. We're going to have to stop this up here and down here. And as I step off this mic, I want to just thank you for all of your time. And if there's something that I've said that was flawed or off, please draw me aside, because I am a member of this community, and I don't want to be divided from this community and make this into 10 different issues. This is one issue. So if I said something wrong, please hold me accountable for it and let me know, because there's something you know that I don't, and we need each other in this. Thank you very much.